All right, so as a Jags fan, I figured I'm gonna do a quick reaction to the Clemson Ohio State game that just happened, the college football playoff semifinal. Go through kind of what I saw, especially mostly from the quarterbacks. That's what that's what people give a fuck about, right? So, Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, what happened? So, first thing, this is what I'm gonna start with. I think is not worried about Trevor Lawrence. Still going first overall, anything like that. There were things in that game, so like I didn't get to do obviously is just after the game like a full film review or nothing like that yet. But he was given his circumstances, he was more than fine. That the Clemson's offensive line was absolutely destroyed. Anybody you don't need to watch a whole lot of football to know that from watching that game. They got fucked up. And frankly, I mean he handled it not bad. You see quarterbacks do 1,000 times worse in the NFL. I mean, under that rate of pressure, dude. I've seen games where Patrick Mahomes. I mean, if he gets hit with that, he struggled. Now, not to say I think Trevor Lawrence is necessarily Patrick Mahomes or anything like that. I don't. I just frankly I don't know. Yet obviously no one does. But there were things that made me say, all right, he's going to be fine even in the worst circumstances. Also, I mean, Clemson's play calling was absolutely garbage. Their receivers outside of Powell were expected a lot more out of like Amari Rogers and some of the other guys, but yeah, I'm not super worried about Trevor Lawrence. More worried than I was going into it, just given I hadn't done a ton of like looking at him beforehand, but I think he'll be all right. As far as Fields go, that's the one that I think is way more interesting to talk about with this game. Uh, Damn, that was encouraging. So I'm focused completely on the NFL so far, especially with this channel and everything. So I haven't gotten to watch any of the quarterback stuff. I've read things, especially about Justin Fields, and a lot of them were negative, especially recently. As a Jags fan, kind of seeing what people were saying when we had the second overall pick about how we should trade out of it or all this dumb shit. People trying to convince them. So, well, not necessarily dumb, but all these fucking crazy ideas to avoid drafting Justin Fields because people didn't like him. So I did definitely have a negative expectation or view going into it, and yeah, that's not what I came out with of it with. Now I'm gonna go over the quick negative things first. One, there were signs of him not dealing with pressure great. Was it anything like concerning? Anything worse than a lot of NFL quarterbacks? Not really. That's something I expect, especially of a college player, but it doesn't mean they weren't there, right? Like that is still something to take a note of. And two, dude, holy shit, the Clemson defense was bad. Wow. um, like I said, man, I'm sure if you watch the all 22 of a lot of those deep touchdown passes, there's going to be some crazy stupid things that the Clemson secondary is doing now. Fields was taking advantage of those, which not every quarterback can do, which is really good. And that's I think the main positive was he just showed a willingness to throw the ball downfield into situations that even in the NFL lead to positive like outcomes fairly frequently. Throwing the ball to guys who are one on one even down because if a receiver's even they're ahead in the vast majority of circumstances. Just being willing to do that creates a ton of opportunities because what a lot of people are going to say, right, is I'm sure is that the Clemson defense looked like garbage, and that in the NFL, those throws would not be open or they would be picked or some shit like that. Now, it's possible those throws weren't like perfect. A lot of them were slightly underthrown, but you got to remember that he would be throwing to NFL receivers too, right? Now, Ohio State has a couple of NFL receivers or will be NFL receivers because side takeaway, which I'll get to later. Holy shit, Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave. But yeah, you got to remember that he's throwing to NFL receivers downfield. And NFL corners fuck up at the catch point all the time too, dude. Have you ever watched Isaiah Oliver play a game? Like that shit is not exclusive to college players. And Clemson was still, they're all 5 stars on the defense, right? So yeah, Fields was really, really encouraging because I mean, their quarterbacks, right, already in the NFL, because this is something that makes Justin Herbert in his rookie year already so good, and I saw a lot of parallels in their play in this one game. Like, I don't want to go overboard, but I'm pretty sold on Justin Herbert. And guys that are concerning like Tua Tagovailoa, outside of the first game he played, funny enough, actually has had real problems doing that successfully now. He's been in a way worse circumstance, don't get me wrong, but yeah, that's a good thing for sure. As far as just like reading the field and stuff like that, did I think it was great? No. But did I think it was like subpar? Did I think it didn't like? Did I think it clearly didn't meet the level of NFL player? I wouldn't say that at all. So I'm definitely going to get more to it as the draft goes, so I can have a day of preseason because I'm sure there'll be things that'll show up that'll tell me a lot more about him. But yeah, Justin Fields, that was encouraging for presumably the Jets at number 2. Other takeaways from that game, just as far as the NFL prospects wise, yeah. The whole Ohio State defensive line looked crazy good, but before I do more research on that Clemson offensive line, I don't want to like make any crazy claims about it because seriously, what the fuck? For a high level college football game, I mean, that type of disparity just doesn't exist most of the time. That's like when it's when any SEC team plays Vanderbilt. That's what that shit looks like. It is bad. Yeah, Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson, Ohio State receivers. God fucking damn, those guys are crazy. The main thing in that game was the ability to track the ball down the field, which not every receiver is good at, and the ones who are get real good. That's part of what makes Stephon Diggs so good. That's part of what makes like Calvin Ridley so good, is being able to track the ball downfield. It's what gives Mike Evans his huge floor as a receiver, and it's what like some receivers are missing that you can tell. Like who would be a good example of like a athletic receiver who has trouble tracking the ball down the field, and that's the reason that they're not good. Wish I could think of one off the top of my head. I guess I'll come back to it if I think of one. But the point is, that's a really valuable skill in the NFL that not everyone has. That's really good. Marquez Valdez-Scantling. He's bad anyway, but that's the prime example of someone who was garbage at that. Yeah. So yeah, that's those guys were crazy. As well as the Ohio State offensive line looked really good. Trey Sermon, I mean, listen, he's not going to be a running back that matters. It's likely in the NFL, hard to tell, which is important to remember because with running backs, right, and with my whole thing, is what I talk about. I think it's pretty much proven to be true. Is that unless they turn drives like consistently into touchdowns, it just doesn't matter. That's the problem with Ezekiel Elliott. He just doesn't do that very well, and it shows. It's the problem with guys like, I don't know, Latavius Murray or, Melvin Gordon is a big one for that too. They just don't matter. If you throw in replacements, they end up doing the same production in the same circumstance the vast majority of the time. You really need Chris McCaffrey, Dalvin Cook, Josh Jacobs, those guys, David Montgomery recently, guys who really turn stuff into touchdowns, which I think is probably really hard to tell going from the NFL, from the college to the NFL. And Trey Sermon, listen, he looked good in that game for sure, but I'm not going to put basically anything to it, especially as a running back. So yeah, those are my thoughts on that game. Like I said, main thing, Trevor Lawrence, not super worried. Maybe if I review this game more fully, I could be, but I think that's okay. But Justin Fields, yeah, definitely encouraging. So also while I'm here, I'll do the quick Notre Dame Alabama game. I don't even care about fucking anybody else besides devonta Smith, to be honest. Again, college game, so I'm gonna be careful with this before I like review it more in depth. But that, I mean, dude, that's Stephon Diggs. Like what the fuck? And listen, I think Stephon Diggs is probably the third best receiver in the NFL. I thought that going into the year too. It's not a recency thing. He's better than DeAndre Hopkins. He's better, I know, which maybe is controversial or whatever. It's really not. Just he is the reason the Bills are having so much success. One of many, but he's the primary one, as opposed to previously. Him and Antonio Brown, like those types of guys, those are the receivers that really, really matter in the NFL. Other guys do too in other ways, but those are the ones that it's just different, and he is that pretty clearly. Now, again, a lot of people thought about Jerry Jeudy, and he has shown signs of that as a rookie, but isn't quite there. Although, rookie receiver, that's tough. But yeah, devonta Smith, what the fuck? Mac Jones, I don't know. I've watched Alabama. I mean, I've watched all these guys more than once, but not like super closely. Mac Jones, though, I don't know. He kills it every time, but when you play with that level of talent disparity, hard to make any judgments on it. The other guys, other Bama guys, what was the tight end, Billingsley? That guy was pretty impressive. I don't know if he's draft eligible or anything, but their offensive line too, really good. But again, with Notre Dame, I mean, they have a history of this, right? So hard to take too much from it. I just wanted to quick mention Devonta Smith though, because what the fuck? I think that guy. Wow. Yeah. So those are my quick thoughts on the two college football playoff games.